Jason Statham's star power stems from an earlier era of filmmaking, and thrillers starring tough guys like Charles Bronson and Clint Eastwood. It's never been a particularly noble genre, but it can be quite engaging in the right hands. There's far less of a market for it these days, when superheroes rule the roost and massive special effects are the order of the day. Even action films, harkening back to their heyday of the 1970s and 1980s, like the Fast and the Furious franchise, use big budgets and massive ensembles to compete with modern mega franchises. Statham's work tends to stay lean and mean, and the actor has both the presence and the physical skills to pull it off seemingly without effort. There aren't many performers or filmmakers specializing in the kind of movies he makes, and while not all of them are masterpieces, he's still found his share of winning efforts. That includes Wild Card, a 2015 film that attracted little notice when it was first released. The project has a wild and fascinating history, most notably as a truly terrible Burt Reynolds movie called Heat. Statham does much better with it than Reynolds. Burt Reynolds' Heat is not to be confused with the superior 1995 thriller Heat, directed by Michael Mann and starring Al Pacino and Robert De Niro. The version in question arrived in 1986 after a truly torturous production process that practically doomed it from the start. It began as a novel by William Goldman, who quickly penned a screenplay for it with the intention of making a movie. In his memoir, Which Lie Did I Tell?, he refers to it as one of my major disasters. Reynolds was attached to the project from the beginning, and his career was beginning to experience its first real decline. His last two action films, 1984's City Heat and 1985's Stick, are critical and commercial disasters, and while 1984's The Cannonball Run 2 turned a profit, it hasn't exactly held up over time. The films reflect an effort on the actor's part to turn away from the lighter action comedies that defined his stardom and embrace more serious thrillers. Heat was intended to be a part of that, and Goldman's credentials were sterling, with 2 Oscar wins and the triumph of 1987's The Princess Bride still to come. Unfortunately, the movie itself did nothing to halt the trend. Robert Altman was slated to direct, but backed out, ostensibly due to a scheduling conflict. He was replaced by Dick Richards, who feuded with Reynolds and left when the actor punched him on set. Jerry Jameson was brought in to replace him, only for Richards to return later in the shoot. Richards left a second time after being injured in a fall from a crane. He later sued Reynolds for the punch, and the actor was eventually forced to pay $500,000 in damages. The Directors Guild of America ultimately had to arbitrate who the film's final director was, with Richards ruled responsible for 40% of the finished product and Jameson for 31%. They are the two names credited in the final film.